Here's a question that I've always wondered. FrSky, is it a drone company or exactly what is it?
Okay, that's great. So that's the top two questions. I thought you guys were a drone company. And the other one is, how do you pronounce your name? Is it FR Sky or Free Sky?
Okay, I got to stop you right there. When
Yeah,
you said FrSky in our video earlier today, I was like,
yes.
finally, I know how to say this.
That's
Tell
what
me
I'm
why
here.
it tell me why it's FrSky.
Okay, so this came out, the company came out around 2010. And by that time, texting was big. So what would happen is you drop the vowels.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so that's why when Twitter came out, it was TWTTR.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And
so
then
that was just an abbreviated form of
right. Then we never lost it. So it's always been Free Sky. So yeah, that's the thing. So yeah, the question is, are we a drone company? And that is, and so here's the God honest truth. All right. So start off with what happened was the president of the company, a little bit of history about Free Sky. He started the company and he was wanted to start a radio company or something. He was educated in RF transmission, and he looked at what was available in the market for two-way transmission when it came to transmitters for people who fly planes. And so he did what anyone else would do. In college, you call it plagiarism. In after college, you call it research. And so what he did is he got his hands on a Futaba transmitter, and he started to figure out and receiver and started to figure out how they put together 2.4 gigahertz. He also figured out all the things they did wrong. Futaba agreed with this because they eventually changed to fast and fastest. But essentially, what he did was he came out with something called
mm,
ACCST. This was the original transmit module. It was a module that goes on the back of a transmitter. So it goes right back here. Back then, the bays were larger. And then you would have a receiver. And these things just were taken off at the flying field. People got their hands on them. They're like, oh my gosh, the range is incredible on this.
right.
Plus, you get telemetry. It's 8 channels. It was inexpensive. And this was something that really took off. Now, part of the thing that also happened was something called SBUS, which is serial bus. It's basically zeros and ones transmitted at a very high rate of speed. And this could be its own video at some point discussing what SBUS is all about. So at the time, there were two companies that had this SBUS, and that was FreeSky and that was Futaba. And the drone industry took off a couple years later. I'd say around 2012, 2013, you started to see it happen. And what these guys need was a bunch of channels. They needed 16 channels. We eventually went from 8 channels to 16 channels. I would say like in the first year it happened where we've improved the technology. So ACCST D16 is what you still can work with today. And that's kind of the interesting thing about these receivers is a lot of these receivers, they say about 90% of the receivers we've ever sold, you can still work with today. They're
Wow.
still, yeah, you can
Viable. All right.
update them. And there's a lot of people who still have these old receivers from way back when. So the drone community needed a transmitter and receiver. And at the time, we had this radio called the Taranis
Yep.
X9D. And that was $150. It was a great transmitter. And that was the quintessential drone radio. And because I mean, we literally sold things. I mean, the company is really humble. It's a family-run company. The first order we've ever got was from Hobby King. It was for $150,000. The president of the company and his wife sat on the kitchen table night after night, soldering together all the transmitter modules. And
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So some of those modules and receivers that you have floating around in the marketplace, the president of the company and his wife made, and they're still being used today. So that's a long time ago. But when we had this X9D transmitter and the drone community just ate it up, that was the quintessential drone radio. And for years and years, FreeSky was associated with the drone community. However, we've always been part of the fixed wing flying community. And even in the days when we were making these transmitters and receivers that were favored the drone radios, we still had things like receivers that were for gliders. We had started to work putting stabilized receivers in. We started working with 900 megahertz. So there's a long history of doing this. We even tried to make our own operating system, which was easier for the fixed wing pilots to work with. The first attempt came out with our higher end radios known as Horus. It was called FROS, and it worked okay. It had its limitations. I don't think at that time the company was necessarily very focused on the fixed wing community. It never really updated. But the second time around, when we wanted to build something from the ground up, when we wanted to move away from open source to a closed source system, we developed Ethos. And Ethos is an operating system that is essentially written from the ground up. It is written with fixed wing pilots in mind. It's a touch-based operating system. If you know how to work with a cell phone or a smartphone in particular, it should come very natural to you. There is a learning curve. I do not tell people like you're going to figure this thing out in 5 minutes. No, there's definitely a learning curve, but there's plenty of videos online to discuss everything about it. So that is it.
That's the answer.
Yeah, that is the answer.
So what, let's see. I know some things have just dropped, and I guess we'll entice everyone just by saying there's new things to be discussed and seen from you guys.
Yeah, I think the big thing that we've worked on here the last few years has been starting around the same time as we're making the transmitters. We started making Ethos. We also started making servos, and we've had about 4 generations of since then. So the first servos were, they were okay. They weren't great, but they were okay. And enough people got their hands on them, enough people liked them that we're able to develop them. By the second generation, they were much better. Third generation, they were rock stars. And the fourth generation, they're in orbit right now. So we have some servos coming out this year that are going to blow people away. They're so good and so inexpensive.
Well, here's the good news for everyone. We're going to be doing this on a regular basis, so you can keep your eye out. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also on RC Groups, I'll have feature articles with links below. And you can get tips, find out what's happening. And if you stay tuned, there's some other stuff that's about to drop that's very interesting. So, FRSKY Steve, thank you for all this information and telling me how to say the name correctly.
Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, y'all. Hit all the buttons.